So, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Eastleigh Local Area Committee, which is being broadcast and recorded via Microsoft Teams Live. My name is Councillor Tina Campbell and I am chair of this committee and will be conducting the meeting tonight. During the meeting, you will hear from members of the committee who are on your screen now. Also present are the officers from Eastleigh Borough Council, who are now shown on the screen. They will present their reports that have been written and provide support for the committee tonight. If we experience a connection problem, this event will be paused. If a councillor loses connection or joins later, I will ask them to introduce or reintroduce themselves for the benefit of the viewers. In the unlikely event of myself losing connection, the Vice Chair, Councillor Alex Bourne, will take over. But please bear with us this evening as this is our first meeting in these roles. So we'll do our very best to help everything run smoothly. We always welcome people to speak at the meeting, although this is a formal committee meeting of Eastleigh Borough Council and not a public meeting. Public participation during this virtual committee will be undertaken in a slightly different way. The members of the public that have registered to speak will be invited into the live event at the relevant agenda item and will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak. A verbal 30-second advance warning will be provided by the local area manager. People wishing to speak on an item on the agenda are able to do so before the debate starts. But once the debate has started, however, it is not possible to invite or receive comments from the floor. We want to be as inclusive as possible, but will not tolerate any disruptions to our meeting. Should there be any disruption, we do have the power under the Council's constitution to remove people from the meeting or to continue in private, neither of which we take lightly or wish to do. So let's move to the first item on the agenda. Laura, do we have any apologies this evening, please?
We don't, Chair, we have a full house.
Thank you. So on to the second agenda item, the minutes of the last meeting, 9th of June 2020. Can councillors let me know if they have any issues with page 1 of those minutes? Page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and finally page 6. Okay, can I take it that we are all happy with those minutes? I can see lots of nodding heads there, so thank you. Item 4 would be public participation, but I don't believe that we have any this evening. So moving on to item number 5, which is the
missed declarations of interest.
Oh, sorry, there you go. Oh, sorry, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest that they wish to make at this time? No, okay. You can of course declare interest should they occur to you later in the meeting. Okay, sorry about that. Public participation, we still don't have any at this stage, so that's on to item number 5, which is the Chair's report. So regular attendees of this committee will note that since our last meeting there have been some changes of personnel. Following the full council meeting on the 23rd of July, I've been given the great privilege of taking over from Councillor Bicknell as chair of this committee. I would like to pay tribute to him and his dedication and commitment to the role over the past 2 years. I have greatly admired his organisational skills, his attention to detail and his tenacity in ensuring that issues are dealt with. I hope that I will be able to emulate his effectiveness as a committee chair whilst bringing to the role my own unique style. I can't let this occasion pass without noting that I am the first female chair of ELAC since the local area committee system was formed in 1996. So we are making local history here tonight. I can promise my fellow ELAC councillors and residents that I will endeavour to do all I can during my time as chair to ensure that Eastleigh remains a great place to work, live and play. Taking over from me as Vice Chair is Eastleigh South Councillor Alex Bourne. The final committee change that I would like to make you aware of is that Councillor Reynolds, a ward councillor in Eastleigh North, has stepped down in order to spend more time with her family and on her research studies. I would like to thank her for her service to the town. Due to government restrictions as a result of coronavirus, all elections have been cancelled until May 21 at the earliest, so we will have to wait until then for a replacement for Councillor Reynolds. However, I would like to assure the residents of Eastleigh North that they are very well served in the meantime by Councillor Clark and Councillor Tyson Payne. Hopefully, you will have seen in the news that Eastleigh was recently voted the 5th best location in the UK to bring up a family. In some small way, I would like to think that ELAC have contributed to this achievement through our play area improvement programme, which is ensuring that children and families can access high quality and challenging play near their homes. I am delighted to say that several further projects within the programme have recently started or have come to fruition. Construction has started on a brand new £350,000 play area and landscaping project at Pirelli Park. 2 new play areas at the North Stoneham development are on track for completion at the end of September. The larger natural play area is particularly exciting, so do please take a look. These were funded with £230,000 from the developer Highwood. Work has also started on a £150,000 project to transform the play area at Lawn Road Rec, although this won't be completed until the spring to allow time for the new earthworks and rock amphitheatre to settle before the new play equipment is installed. We are also making sure we don't forget our older play areas, and 2 recent smaller scale refreshes have breathed new life into the Grantham Green and Lee Road Rec play areas. The cost of these schemes are closer to £10,000 each. They now look as good as new, following a deep clean and new colourful safety surfacing, and have been well received by local children and their families. I would also like to draw your attention to the visual arts programme that is being delivered by the fabulous team at The Point and has been funded by this committee to bring some colour and vibrancy to the town centre during these challenging times. The programme includes, amongst other things, live music, street performers, graffiti art and a virtual monster trail. I have to say that it is not every day that you are met by a large orange octopus and acrobatic fish when shopping in town. The marketing banner for this programme is "Together we make Eastleigh," and I think this is absolutely spot on. The coronavirus pandemic has changed our world in ways few of us thought imaginable this time last year. And to make Eastleigh sustainable, it is going to take all of us, council, residents and local businesses working together as a community in order to support the long-term future of the town. This programme runs until the end of September. Finally, this weekend is your last chance to take part in Eastleigh's 7th annual film festival. The ever creative team at The Point were determined not to be defeated by the virus, and so this year the film festival is being delivered as a drive-in cinema at Itchen Valley Country Park, giving us the unforgettable cinema experience we've come to expect whilst keeping us safe. The screenings this week are Jurassic Park and Evil Dead 2. Thank you. So moving on to item number 6, the financial management report. Can I ask Guy Riddoch to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just to introduce this report. It's one of our regular reports, which we have most committees, where we allocate the funds available to the committee to a variety of projects. So I'll just quickly run through those for those who haven't had a chance to read the report. The first is £50,000 of developers' contributions to increase the £100,000 budget for Lawn Road play area to 150,000 or 157. The next is 40,840. Now, this was a bit of a late request from our health colleagues in the CCG to provide a number of improvements to Boyett Wood Surgery and St Andrews Surgery, which serve residents of the town, and these are to increase the capacity of both those GP surgeries in light of increasing our increasing population with housing developments nearby. The next item is £15,000 for the removal of a play area. This play area, unlike the others which we're expanding, is not very well used at all. I think this is probably in light of the move of people to the bigger and more attractive Grantham Green, one very nearby, but also in response to a bit of antisocial behaviour that we've got in this rather hidden area, which is not overlooked. So residents have certainly requested that this is removed and converted to car parking, and we are currently running a questionnaire with local residents, and we hope to have the results of that fairly soon. So this is a delegated decision to me in consultation with the chair and the vice chair, subject to the findings of that consultation exercise. The next two have already happened. You mentioned the 2 refreshes of Lee Road Rec and Grantham Green. This is really just to ensure that there's a proper audit trail of the finances so that they can be allocated properly, again from developers' contributions. And we just wanted to explain why we did those early. That's to make sure that we had them available to young people through the summer months. And last on this, again, you've mentioned a programme, the cultural programme that is on at the moment. You gave us a strong indication that you wanted to get that going, so we have done that. But again, this is just to make sure that there's an audit trail for the finances. The only change in this is I just need to clarify the source of the funding. And this is just needs to be minuted, that whilst everything in that list, the town centre events, the hanging baskets and the new chalet for the Point Summer Social Programme next year, all of that will come from the revenue reserve, except £1,500, which will come from the savings in our revenue budget, due to the cancellation of our bandstand concerts this summer. So I can happily clarify that with our minute takers later, but hopefully that is clear enough. Any questions you have, do please let me know.
Okay, Councillor Bicknell, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Actually, just for benefit of the members of the audience, I'm Councillor Paul Bicknell for representing Eastleigh South. I just wanted, well, Guy's actually beaten me to it because I'd noticed in the pack that the items of number 6 there in the recommendations, it wasn't clarified as to where the funds were coming from. So I welcome the fact that that's been identified and will be minuted in the minutes for transparency, leading on. So that was the actual question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Irish, you wish to speak?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Wayne Irish, Eastleigh Central. Just to say how pleased I am to see we've had and we're still having the town centre events, and we've got the hanging baskets. It's a great boost to our town because people are really, not really. They're coming into town to do their shopping. They need a little bit to brighten up their lives, and I think it does brighten up their lives. It looks really good. and hopefully it will actually encourage more people to come into town. So well done to everyone who thought it up and started to do it.
Thank you. Any more questions from councillors? No? Okay. Do I have a proposer? Okay, Councillor Bourne. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Tyson-Payne. Thank you. Any debate? No? Okay. Can I just ask all councillors to unmute and just signal their agreement to the finance report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay, so that then brings us on to item number 7, which is the closure of High Street and Market Street petition. If you can just bear with me 1 second, I have so many bits of paper here, I can't now find the one I want. Okay, so I would like to welcome 3 members of the Eastleigh Town Action Group to ELAC. We are all very keen to hear your views on why you think we should be opening the roads at this time. So can I invite Lorraine Gardner from the Chalet to speak first, please?
Hello. Can you
Welcome.
hear me? Hi. Can you hear me? Is that my?
Oh, bear with me a second, Lorraine. Is your camera on?
I'll tell you. Yes, it is. Oh no.
Guy, can you
now?
turn this off? I think we've got too many cameras on.
There you go.
There we go. Brilliant.
I've got camera and microphone on.
Yeah, you're fine, Lorraine. We just had too many other cameras on.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
So when you're ready, Lorraine, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, well then let's begin. So in response to the recommendation made in the report that this committee support the proposal to keep Market Street and High Street closed until April the 21st, 2021, the 3 speakers, the 2 who are going to follow me, wish to put the following points forward for full and proper consideration in advance of any final decision being made. Firstly, Eastleigh Borough Council's decision to close the 2 town centre streets to all traffic on the day that all non-essential shops and businesses were finally able to reopen following 3 months of lockdown has had a serious and ongoing negative impact on the majority of those shops and businesses on the 2 affected streets. La Fenice, a business that was there for over 30 years, cited the road closures as literally the final straw and has closed up and gone. Only this week we have lost Family Shopper on Market Street for the same reasons. That's just to mention a couple. Many of the shops that remained open all the way through lockdown also suffered an immediate and in some cases really drastic reduction in both the numbers of customers coming in and in their takings when compared to the situation immediately before the road closures came into effect. Iceland, for example, have reported to us that they were down £1,000 a day immediately following the closure of the roads, having been open all the way through lockdown previous to that. This impact, therefore, was plainly not just due to COVID-19 or the public suddenly becoming afraid to visit the town centre as of June the 15th. What the road closures have achieved, unfortunately, and I'm sure that wasn't the intention, was to make it far more difficult for many people who regularly use the shops and other businesses on Market and High Street by just popping in to shop and leave. It's made it so much harder for them to access them and do that. The downturn in customer footfall into many of the shops and businesses on the 2 affected roads has at this point improved only temporarily due to the government's Eat Out to Health Out scheme, and this uptick in footfall on the streets is clearly reflected in the graphs and charts used in the report, but of course came to an end 2 weeks ago, and past this point any of the report statistics reflected will not show the true situation for us all now. The reasons given for closing the roads initially was, well, one of them was to create a safe trading environment and enable safe queuing and social distancing, and this has not proved necessary as the feared queues have simply not materialised. Where they do occasionally occur, the businesses have proven themselves to be more than able to handle them in a safe and professional manner. And I have to say that the public, for the most part, have also shown themselves to be perfectly able to observe social distancing on the pavements, which at 4 metres wide on both sides of both streets give more than sufficient space for everyone to pass safely, even allowing for the enormous planters that have been put there by the council. If the council and the public want many of the shops and businesses on Market Street to remain open, they must be viable. Putting more obstacles in the way of their recovery following a 3-month shutdown caused by a global pandemic is not the way to do this, nor is this the time. There is a time for planning further pedestrianisation to the town centre, and we as a business community would be more than happy to work with the council on ways of achieving this for the benefit of all. However, now is not the time. While so many businesses are struggling to get back on their feet and to find a way of continuing to trade under the burden of all the new COVID regulations. To maintain the road closures now, having been the situation since June, throughout the forthcoming festive season is really now causing pain and distress. This is the one chance in the year that many businesses on both Market and High Street have of making up the sum of the huge losses of income they've suffered since March. And it can mean the difference in survival and going under going into 2021. With all that means, of course, for the loss of local jobs as well. So many of these businesses employ local people, Eastleigh residents, and we want to protect their jobs and do everything we can to do so. To sum up, it's only along with the businesses that form Eastleigh Town Centre that Eastleigh Borough Council will be able to say, we make Eastleigh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I invite Sukhdev Raj from RJS Convenience Store? You have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies that I've had a very short time to prepare something, so it will be fairly brief. But I'm looking at the report that was produced by yourselves, looking at the overall feelings of the general public regards to the road closures. And having a look at the facts and the figures, I can see one of the overall feelings was you interviewed 93 businesses, and of that 48% say the roads should be reopened and 24% were in favour of them remaining closed. I mean, this is a clear indication that it is affecting businesses adversely, which are already struggling in the current climate due to COVID. And from a personal, being on the front line and watching the street regularly, I can clearly see that numbers visiting the street are down and don't warrant a road closure. There is significantly less people in the town, and there is no queuing at all. Well, I won't say at all. There are some occasions, like school kids, do have a queue system there, but they manage it quite effectively. But otherwise, there is no need for any queuing, no need for extra space in the street. The streets are wide enough to handle them, and as Lorraine said, the general public are very good at complying with COVID restrictions as well. Following on from that, your report also goes in some depth on public feedback. I'm quite disappointed on the public feedback. You've only got feedback from 175 people, considering how big Eastleigh Borough is. 175 people is not a true reflection of the feelings of the general public. And further on, we've submitted a petition, which I believe is a truer indication of public feelings. They've taken their time to sign, put their names, and support reopening of the roads. And this is more of a true indication of public feeling. And looking at obviously the percentages, you say 55% of the general public were happy with the road closure. That's only 84 people. I'm sorry, that's
remaining.
Yeah, I mean, and 43% you say equates to 64 members of the general public are unhappy with the road closure. Now, if you put into context, add our petition statistics to that, look, the total number that would cover would be like 2,156 people, of which 96.1% would be in favour of the roads being reopened, and 3.9% would be in favour of them remaining closed. And I believe that's a truer picture of the public feeling, and also, you know, the shoppers and the disabled people are all showing their feelings and unhappiness having to negotiate the town, and some of them are not able enough to walk the distances that you've provided, and you have provided alternative spaces, which, you know, I appreciate that, but some people can't travel that distance. It's just, you know, they just can't do it, and that's what I propose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And can I finally ask Jo Smith of Choices Sandwich Bar, please?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you see me?
We can. When you're ready, 3 minutes.
As the roads are closed for social distancing, then why are you considering allowing tables and chairs on the highway? Surely this would have more of an impact in spreading the virus, as people are sitting around for longer, no longer requiring to wear face masks, and that would make the people who are working in the businesses to come outside with the food and drink, clearing up. So that's kind of like blocking more of the pavement, and not everyone is nimble enough to be jumping from the road to the pavement to go round this in the doorways, etc. when they're full up. And also, I'm sure there may even be people waiting to get inside the restaurants or the cafes or the pub or whatever it is it's going to be going past. And also, I know you saying that Eastleigh is the like the place to live and bring up families, but if there's knives and things like that on those tables, we've already had a lot of knife crime over the years in Eastleigh. Secondly, you don't want cars in the town centre, hence why you haven't allowed the market back. Yet, to water the plants in the town, you're using a truck. And many other councils have already reopened the roads because they have seen the damage it's done to all the businesses. But our roads are still closed, but yet it's showing that we're capable of dealing with this. The town centre businesses and the community are represented by Eastleigh Town Centre Action Group. We would like to discuss the following compromises if the roads are to stay closed. Then please at least allow businesses to get back on their feet by either timed closures for the busy period, i.e. maybe close Saturdays 9 to 5. Allow opening of High Street alone, as this is by far the quietest street of the two. Allow evening opening times for High Street, as this is the nightlife area, say from 5 or 6 p.m. Or even allow taxis to access both streets and to pick up and drop off. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So thank you to the 3 speakers for taking the time this evening to come and share with us your experiences of the road closure. I think what comes across from your comments is how committed you are to Eastleigh and how passionate you all are about your businesses. And whilst we may not all agree on everything this evening, one thing that I hope that we can all agree on is that we all want the very best for Eastleigh, and that we need to work together to secure the long-term sustainability of the town. You've obviously raised a lot of issues. we will, in the next agenda item, be discussing the report that you have alluded to. And at the end of that agenda item, we will take a vote to either accept the recommendations that are in the report or to make amendments to them, or we may defer making a decision. And you will, of course, be formally notified of the result. Councillors, before I let the speakers go, I know that we're going to be discussing it shortly, but is there anything you wanted to ask of the speakers before we let them go? No? Okay. So oh, sorry, Councillor Bicknell.
I was just going to point out that very using mic open because there's a lot.
I can hardly hear you. Sorry, I think, were you referring to Councillor Atkinson?
Yes. Whoever
Okay,
had open mic with a lot of background has now closed it. So.
Okay, I wasn't sure that Councillor Atkinson was allowed to comment on this item. I thought she was going to be included in the next one, but I don't have an issue, Councillor Atkinson, if there's a question you'd like to ask.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have been scheduled to speak to agenda item 8, I know, but yeah. Sorry, but then a question occurred to me, and I just wondered if our petitioners, please, could enlighten the committee with the number of people they had to sign their petition, as it would be useful to understand how many had supported it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I can do that myself because I have the, don't know if you can see this, I have the copy of the petition here. It was really interesting looking through it. I must admit, I haven't personally counted the number of signatures, but it does say 2008 signatures. And looking through it, what was really gratifying was to see just how far and wide the visitors are to Eastleigh. So it's wonderful to see that we are able to actually attract people from not just the local area, but from wider afield as well. Councillor Bourne, you had a question.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, with regards to the 2008 signatures, are they 2008 unique signatures, or is it multiple signatures for same people? And then another question was, I can't pronounce the Fenice restaurant was it was the final nail in their coffin, but I don't believe they even opened. So it doesn't seem to me that the road closure can be the final nail in the coffin when they didn't open. And also, I'm intrigued to know that the representative from the chalet isn't open either. So I'm not sure what knock-on effect that's had with the road closure. Thank you.
Okay. Lorraine, would you like to comment on that last point about the chalet not being open?
Yes, I would. That would be lovely. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is to everyone, but obviously to Alex especially. La Fenice didn't open because on the day that all non-essential shops and services could reopen, the roads were closed. We had 3 days notice. He certainly said he had 3 days notice of this, at which point he threw in the towel. He has long said that the problems with parking, the implementation of parking regulations has been killing his business. I'm perfectly happy to get him to send you a letter to confirm this. Obviously, he's our neighbour, our immediate neighbour, and we talk to him regularly. And it was the fact that the road closures, as far as he was concerned, I'm not speaking for everyone else, obviously, was the final straw. Hence, he decided to move on. No, the chalet is not open, and I'm also happy to confirm that one of the major reasons we are not already open is because of the road closures. I'm sorry if that doesn't fit with Mr. Bourne's idea of what businesses are up to, or that we can't be bothered to reopen, because that's not what we're doing. But we are in part of the nighttime economy, obviously, which is apart from in the Swan Centre, is mainly located on High Street. The kind of business that we are and the kind of customers that we attract, which we value them so much, is that what they expect, and we have been talking to them. No, I have not made that public, but I'm happy to, is that they want and expect to be able to be dropped off and picked up outside our business. We are a late night business. The customers that we have in are leaving at midnight or 12:30. All through the forthcoming winter season, obviously it's going to be dark, it's potentially going to be wet and cold. They have said that no, the fact that they cannot be dropped off by taxi or a designated driver to our door or collected at the end of their evening, particularly women, that they would have to walk some distance around Eastleigh looking for the taxi. Obviously we would let people know where the taxi ranks are, we wouldn't not let them know. Would have a severe impact on their decision to come to visit us for their evening out. Now, if it's far easier to go somewhere else for a lovely evening dressed in your finest, or for your cocktails, or to celebrate an anniversary or another special event where you can be dropped off and picked up outside, and we are only talking about taxis here, not opening the road to all traffic, if that helps, then that's what people will do. This is something that will certainly affect us, particularly as we are now entering the festive season, which is, as I've said previously, our one chance to try and make back some of the losses that we've already incurred. So yes, if anyone would like to talk to me any further on that issue, I would be more than happy to have that conversation with him.
Can I just ask, are you going to be opening?
Yes.
When furlough is over, presumably?
No, we're opening before furlough is open. We've kept all our staff today. All our staff are local residents. We've kept all of them on, all 17 of them. Yeah. And we will be bringing them all back, but whether we remain viable as a business, and this is not, of course, not just to do with the Eastleigh Borough Council or the road closures, I'm not saying that, but on top of everything else, that breeze block, if that is too much and we are not viable, that remains to be seen. But obviously it is possible that we would have to let people go. We would have to look at our viability going forward if we discover that with the addition of the road closures, we are just not getting the footfall. And that's obviously part of, but that's my personal interest. Obviously, as chair of Eastleigh Town Centre Action Group, I'm trying to represent lots of businesses, not just my own.
Yeah, we understand. Thank you very much for that very full response.
You're welcome.
Councillor Irish, did you want to ask something before we move on?
Chair, I think he was just saying that he couldn't hear Paul. I don't think he's got a question.
No, I couldn't hear just, and there was all the interference going on. It's all right. Thank you, Paul, for sorting it out.
Okay, so if we don't have any more comments on the petition, obviously we have listened to everything that you've said, and we will thoroughly take those points into consideration when we have our debate on the next item. So with that, can I ask Callie Sparks to introduce the report?
Good evening, I'm Callie Sparks. I'm the Sustainable Transport Planner here at Eastleigh Borough Council. I think Laura is going to play the presentation on my behalf. If you have any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Road closures were introduced to Market Street and High Street on the 15th of June. To coincide,
apologies, slight technical hitch.
Since the 15th of June, the government has, throughout the closure of Road closures were introduced to Market Street and High Street on the 15th of June to coincide with the reopening of non-essential retail, to provide space for people to socially distance, encourage active travel into the town, and encourage local shopping trips. Since the 15th of June, the government has introduced further changes to COVID-19 restrictions. On the 4th of July, hospitality businesses were enabled to reopen, and the social distancing guidelines changed in England to 1 metre plus. On the 22nd of July, the Business Planning Act was given royal assent, which enabled pavement licences to be introduced. And in August, the government provided the Eat Out to Help Out scheme to encourage people to support local restaurants and visit their town centres. However, on the 14th of September, new limits were introduced on groups of more than 6 people. And between July and September, local lockdowns have been seen in some towns and cities across England. Throughout the closure of Market Street and High Street, the council has undertaken ongoing monitoring. This covers footfall data, car parking surveys, gathering public feedback, and business feedback. With social distancing measures still in place and the government reintroducing limits on the number of people able to gather, there is a high likelihood of the government's predicted second wave in COVID-19 infections before the end of the year. In recent weeks, COVID-19 cases have been seen to increase across the country and all Hampshire districts. The safety of all those who use the town centre is of fundamental importance to the council. Benefits in maintaining the current arrangements include the opportunity to improve the public realm in partnership with Hampshire County Council, to minimise the risk of Eastleigh becoming a local hotspot and that further impacting on the local economy, the opportunity for new travel and shopping habits to be established, with more people shopping locally. It also provides businesses applying for pavement licences certainty over the use of these areas in the coming months, and a degree of certainty for all those who use the town centre, avoiding the need to reintroduce closures should further increases in infection rates or government restrictions be imposed. During the closure, the council will continue to monitor and evaluate feedback from both businesses and the public, and changes to the town centre scheme can continue to be made to ensure that closures operate safely and any issues that arise are addressed. Footfall in the town centre is monitored through a network of sensors located on Market Street, High Street, Wells Road and Lee Road. Since the reopening of non-essential retail on the 15th of June, footfall in the town centre has increased. When compared to the week commencing the 8th of June, total weekly footfall increased by 20% in the first week of the closure and continued to rise, with the week commencing 24th of August 71% higher. Increase in footfall on a week-by-week basis can be seen here. As can be seen in this chart, there is still some way to go before footfall figures return to 2019 levels. In July, footfall was on average 48% below 2019 levels, but in August this rose to 59%. On the 1st till the 8th of July, Eastleigh Borough Council ran a business survey to gather feedback from businesses within the town centre. 52 responses were received from 41 unique businesses. In addition, one business based at Barton Park Industrial Estate on Chickenhall Lane responded, but as this was outside of the area directly affected by the closures, it has not been included in this analysis. This chart shows the number of responses by location. Businesses were asked if they felt that the changes to various indicators were as a result of road closures or of COVID restrictions, and the findings are set out in this chart. When asked about ways in which the council can improve the town centre and support businesses, 51% said they would like to see more outdoor retail and cafe space. 98% would like to see more shops reopen. 73% would like to see more events in the town. 46% to see more trees and planting, and 68% for more pick-up and drop-off spaces. The overall feelings about changes to the town centre can be seen in the chart below, which shows a comparison between the public and business feedback. Between the 24th of July and the 6th of August, staff from the council went out to interview businesses in the town centre. 93 businesses were interviewed, 25 units were still closed, and 51 were unable to speak with us. So a letter was delivered setting out the changes that were happening in the area and contact details should they wish to discuss any issues. Of the 93 businesses interviewed, 24% were in support of the closures, 28% were neutral and commented that closures had had no impact on their business, and 48% felt that the roads should be reopened to traffic. Where possible, the council has been able to make changes to the town centre scheme to support local businesses. One community have requested dedicated parking within the vicinity of Hands Way and Wells Road Junction for the provision of a bus stand close to shop mobility, which would allow community transport services to disembark their passengers safely. Local funeral directors requested special dispensation to allow funeral processions down Market Street and High Street. Since the scheme was introduced, the council has listened to public feedback with interest. As of the 11th of August, 17 local residents had been in direct contact with the council. We had received one MP letter on behalf of a local resident and a petition signed by 2008 people in support of the reopening of the town centre to vehicles and the reinstatement of previous parking arrangements. A simple yes/no survey was sent out to more than 15,000 email addresses as part of the Borough News e-edition. We received more than 3,000 responses and 67% were in support of the closures. 175 responses to the Sustrans Space to Move survey have been received. 55% of people felt that the changes had helped them to maintain physical distancing. 54% of people felt safer as a result of the scheme, and 54% of people think that the changes could have a positive impact on the area in the longer term. Car parking levels and duration of stay have been monitored since the road closures came into effect. The main car park in Eastleigh, the Swan Centre, provides a clear indicator of usage. Between the 15th of June and the 31st of August, the average spend on parking in the town centre is slightly lower than 2019 levels, but shows a gradual increase over the period. Peak car park occupancy at the Swan Centre has increased from 18% to 58% on average. From the data available, it can be seen that long stay and permit parking associated with office workers is still significantly down. Mitchell Road car park is still down by as much as 82% per day. Usage at the car park has only peaked at 13% since the 15th of June, compared to 89% during 2019. Through feedback on the road closures, a number of comments were received about the cost of parking in Eastleigh. The Eastleigh Local Area Committee Parking Working Group requested further investigation on a number of options. Changes to existing tariffs, including the introduction of a 30-minute off-street tariff, the removal of a 3-hour car parking tariff, and the provision of free parking tariffs, were considered alongside the provision of a long stay parking offer and the incentivisation of cashless payment through the Ringo system. Since the introduction of the closures, a number of changes to the town centre have been made in response to issues raised. This includes the provision of free parking permits for the Mitchell Road car park to residents who live within the closure, making arrangements for retailers to gain access from Market Street, providing permission for utility and highway works within the area, and the installation of planters and hanging baskets, and undertaking community engagement events delivered throughout August and September under the banner of Together We Make Eastleigh. During the first 6 weeks of the closure, a number of comments were received by the Council and Eastleigh Bid regarding the number and distribution of disabled parking bays within the town. To address these concerns, a number of changes came into effect on the 7th of August. This included an increase in the distribution and number of disabled bays to provide 3 dedicated spaces within the Handsway car park, repurposing a taxi rank on Mitchell Road to provide a disabled bay for up to 4 vehicles, and the introduction of a 3-hour time limit on Lee Road to increase turnover. At the same time, the provision of a drop-off and pick-up parking bay on Lee Road East was also introduced. This accommodates up to 3 vehicles, and parking is free of charge but limited to a maximum stay of 15 minutes. The primary focus of these recommendations is to provide clarity and certainty for the period up to the expiry of the temporary traffic regulation order on the 21st of April 2021. They seek to attract increased numbers of shoppers into the town centre through parking offers and demonstrate a commitment to continued engagement with those who work, live in and use our town centre. They will continue to ensure that everyone who uses the town centre has the space to do so safely. And in doing so, we hope will encourage people to return to provide continued and ongoing support for businesses in this most challenging of times. It is recommended that the committee consider the content of the report and support 1. The proposal to keep Market Street and High Street, including the section of Wells Place, closed until the 21st of April 2021. 2. A recommendation to Cabinet to approve the introduction of a buy 1 hour, get 1 hour free offer for all pay and display car parks in the town centre when a ticket is purchased using Ringo, the contactless payment system. This will initially be for the period up until the 1st of January 2021. 3. The recommendation to Cabinet to approve the proposals for the removal of the 3-hour tariff at Wells Place car park. 4. The proposal to introduce an exemption to the temporary traffic regulation order for funeral processions in Market Street and High Street. And 5. The proposal to introduce a bus stand at the junction of Wells Road and Handsway.
Tina, you're on mute, I'm afraid.
Thank you for letting me know. So we do have some public participation today. So we're going to hear from those objecting to those recommendations first. So can I first ask Councillor Margaret Atkinson, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure I would like the introduction of objecting to the recommendations. I might object to some of them, but not all of them, as will become apparent. So I would like to comment as follows. As a lifelong resident of Eastleigh Borough, I'm very saddened to see how quiet the town centre has recently become. There's no vibrancy, there's no bustle, not the signs of a successful, busy shopping centre, nor the signs of the pre-COVID town we have all come to love and know. Those shoppers present in the town centre choose, mostly, to walk on the pavements. The pavements on both High Street and Market Street are plenty wide enough to cope with social distancing and thus maintain the health and well-being of town users, which of course is paramount. So why is Eastleigh Borough Council using this as an excuse to close the town centre to traffic, basically closing off its lifeblood? What other motives can there be? The environment? Property acquisition? Certainly improvements to air pollution and the environment brought about by less vehicle usage are valid and welcome, but why not say so at the start? There has been no transparency in this process. Instead, these road closures have been brought in by stealth on the 15th of June, just at a time when the government COVID-19 lockdown restrictions were easing and businesses thought they had a chance of reviving their income streams. Instead, many businesses are still unable to open. A large part of that reason being that they cannot have vehicle access for deliveries, nor vehicle access to support the nighttime economy. Where is Eastleigh Borough Council's support for local businesses? Where was the proper consultation with these businesses before 15th of June? A lot of consultation seems to have happened afterwards, as the presentation has indicated, incidentally all of which was in the supplementary papers to this committee, so I'm not quite sure why we needed both. But the lack of consultation at an earlier time has prevented businesses from planning this catastrophic, in their eyes, event. Whilst I welcome the recommendations in this report regarding easing of parking charges, why is there no recommendation to allow some vehicles access to the town centre, allowing for all businesses, not just some, to flourish again? Surely it would be possible to allow vehicle access, say between 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. to accommodate business needs. Other towns operate, I'll be quick, other towns operate this approach to pedestrianisation, so why is it impossible for Eastleigh Borough Council even to consider this? Such proposals are not mentioned in this recovery plan. Without all businesses opening and being able to trade successfully, there will not be a full recovery for Eastleigh Town Centre. Eastleigh Borough Council must think again and work harder to support all local businesses before it is too late. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have a series of written statements. So can I ask Guy to read the first, which I believe is from the bid?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in our role as administrators of the Eastleigh bid, we are very disappointed to note that we have not been consulted regarding a review of the town centre road closures. As representatives of a large number of businesses most affected by this action, we feel that we are in a strong position to make a positive contribution to any discussion. We only became aware of this meeting from a Facebook post from a member of ELAC over the weekend. We did think we had a strong partnership relationship with the council and presume that not providing us with any notice of this meeting was simply an oversight. The bid is not opposed to the regeneration of the town, including an aesthetically pleasing pedestrianisation of areas that will enhance the visitor experience and give businesses a better area to trade in. Indeed, that is our whole raison d'etre. The current situation is not that, though the council acted swiftly in closing the roads to make the town safe when opening. That closure is now prohibiting visitors to the town. The current closures make the local town centre less accessible to our visitors, which during the week are more elderly and those with mobility issues who often don't hold a blue badge. The colonnades and the flatness of the town with a good on-street parking made Eastleigh buck the national trends, increasing footfall with a very low number of vacant shops. We have lost this impetus and we are not maintaining these positive gains. Talking to businesses that have stores in other towns where there are no road closures, they have said that those other stores are making a better recovery. One of our retailers has remained open during the lockdown, had planned to expand later this year, but the road closure has seen such a significant drop in turnover that the expansion has been put on hold and may be abandoned. On a practical level, there are still many delivery issues that have not been resolved, and there are still issues about safety at night for emergency vehicles. An ambulance had to reverse all the way back from Wells Place to KFC because of cars parked inappropriately because of the road closures. That's the end of that statement.
Thank you, Guy. Sorry, Callie, I should have asked, do you want to respond to any of the points that Councillor Atkinson made and in the bid statement, or do you want all the statements to be read and you'll address them in one go? How would you prefer to do it?
Yeah, shall we hear all of the comments first, and then I'll be happy to answer any points that are raised or to answer any questions that the councillors may have.
Okay, so if we have the next statement, which is from Penelope Skirchley.
I'm a resident of Eastleigh and wish to make representations on the above and have this read out at the meeting, please. As a working person, full-time work in Eastleigh, I can honestly say that the closure of the town centre to vehicles has massively affected me. Prior to the closure of the town centre roads, I would on average enter the town centre roads about 5 or 6 times a week, either after work at around 5 to 6 p.m. to go to Iceland, Tesco's, Boots or H&M, or on the way back from court to pick up lunch in Boswell's or Choices before going back to the office. The nature of my visits to Eastleigh do not enable me to use the multi-storey car park, as they are by their nature quick stops for picking something up at the end of the day in Iceland, for instance, or on my way back to the office from the court. I am a solicitor. I do not have a lot of time to stop, and when I do go into Eastleigh. Also, on Friday evening, when I would normally collect a pizza from Papa John's, I have been unable to do so due to being prevented from going into the town centre roads. I can honestly say that since the road closures, I have been into Eastleigh in the car about twice, parking in Hansway car park. I've had no option but to use the alternative out-of-town stores, as it's easier for me as a working person. I can see that the road closures probably would be favoured by people who don't work and have more time on their hands. But as a working person, it is critical that I am able to get into Eastleigh town centre to park for say 20 minutes. For this amount of time, it is not appropriate to go into the multi-storey car park as I don't have the time. The car park in Hansway is small and often full up, and this has been worsened recently by the addition of disabled parking spaces, leaving even less for non-disabled users. Whenever I've been into Eastleigh since the roads have been closed, nobody has actually been walking on the roads, and I struggle to understand why the road is actually closed, as the few shoppers that there are still walking on the pavement. Please, can the roads be reopened at this time? Please, can the roads be reopened? At this time, businesses need all the help they can get to survive, whilst there are fewer people out and about due to COVID. They don't need the hindrance at the moment, but support from the local council. Please take heed of these representations. Thank you, Penelope Skirchley.
Thank you. And then we have a statement by Debbie Rampley. Just let me get that up. Hi, my name is Debbie, and I've been supporting the Eastleigh car boot since it started in March 2018. I'm writing to ask you to consider reopening the car boot and the market. The car boot has become a real community for some people, and for some it's the only time they get out to talk to others. There are many that have contacted me saying that at the moment they don't see anyone because they don't go into the shops but feel safer outdoors. I appreciate the market has become smaller, but many like to sit outside Alfie's van and with a cup of tea meeting others. I also feel that it does bring people into town on Thursday and Saturday, which in turn helps out other businesses. A lot of car booters think this is one of the best well-run car boot sale with incredibly friendly staff. There have been other car boots running for the last couple of months with risk assessments in place, and they have worked very well with people respecting the rules. I think if all sellers were asked to have hand sanitizer available, then they would be happy to do so. I do feel this would help the community spirit and hope you will consider opening it all soon. Thank you for your time. Debbie Rampley. Thank you, Guy. And the final written statement from Steve Chivers, please. That's that one. Right. Councillors, can you please reconsider the reopening of the market and car boot? I appreciate that this is closed down at the start of COVID outbreak, but we do need to get back
to some normality. Bitton Market has been open for a number of weeks, and it mirrors the market set up in Eastleigh, and there must have been a risk assessment taken place for the safe reopening during COVID and deemed to be safe for the public. I'm sure Southampton City Council would let you have a copy if requested. With regard to the car boot, Titchfield, Strawberry Fields, Shootash car boot have also been open for some time, and at Eastleigh there were never crowds of people, and it complemented the residents and visitors going to the car boot and also using the shops in the town centre and vice versa. Many car booters have supported the car boot from its initial opening, even during the quiet times with rain or shine, and to date we still have customers contacting us to ask when we will reopen. For many older residents, it was their highlight of the week, and for many, their only social interaction. I cannot understand why the market and car boot cannot reopen if it has been possible at all at the aforementioned venues. I do hope that you can look upon this request favourably, and I would appreciate a reply with regard to your decision. Kind regards, Steve Chivers.
Thank you. And then we have two written statements that are in support of the roads being closed. So the first one is from Brian Race.
Yes, a very short one. Towns and cities all over England have roads that have been turned into traffic-free areas. Keep them closed. It will stop the boy racers from killing somebody. Brian Race.
Thank you. And then the final written statement, which is from Phil Morgan.
Right, a longer one. I oppose the petition and support the temporary pedestrianisation measure that the council put in place. Members of ETCAG have shared this petition and news articles to win residents over to their views on social media. One such article shared why other councils were reversing their decisions, including Edinburgh. I responded with a news article relating to the incident in Edinburgh city centre, where a 3-year-old was crushed and killed by a car that mounted the pavement on the 30th of June 2020, just prior to the pedestrianisation of the area. Why mention this? At a time where our NHS is stretched and could potentially be stretched further with a second wave of COVID-19, why should we be adding the risks associated with mixing motor vehicles and pedestrians? 5 people are killed on average on Britain's roads every day. Let us not allow Eastleigh to potentially contribute to that figure needlessly, especially during this time. We also need the space to allow people social distancing that pavements alone cannot provide. This has proven key to diminishing the spread of COVID-19. The infection rate is increasing again. Let us not be foolish and overturn this, potentially causing that figure to rise further. Petitioners believe that the approximately 30 parking spaces removed have contributed to the loss of trade. I would like to remind people present that other town centres are still quite successful but have been pedestrianised. These include Whiteley Shopping Village, West Quay Shopping Centre, Festival Place, Winchester and Southampton. There are car parks closer to the shops in Eastleigh in comparison to these other pedestrianised retail areas. I believe the problem that Eastleigh faces is a lack of attractive retailers and insecurity of shoppers in a COVID-19 environment. Prior to the pedestrianisation, the problem Eastleigh regularly faced was that cars would take up a lot of space idling in the town centre and surrounding roads in trying to find parking space. This contributed to the traffic jams across the central Eastleigh and contributed to poorer air quality with vehicle exhaust, tyre and brake emissions, and emissions that we now know contribute to health problems such as cancer, COPD and asthma. Again, why should we seriously consider this petition, overturn this pedestrianisation and negatively contribute to the residents' health during a time where our NHS is overstretched and dealing with a pandemic that affects people's respiratory systems? What should be considered is for more parking spaces nearby to be prioritised for disabled users. This issue is often cited by members of ETCAG, and I can partially agree. However, I have to ask why, if this is such an issue for them, they did not petition before for more disabled spaces in the two roads or more accessible crossing points for disabled users when the roads were open to motor traffic. It needs to be noted that not every disabled person drives or has access to a car. I would like to see more seating provided to allow rest, more cycle parking and easier access for disabled users on adaptive cycles and wheelchairs to mitigate any losses and to promote active and alternative travel. I would also like to see this space used for the benefit of businesses, allowing restaurants and pubs to have space for outdoor, which would make Eastleigh more enticing and attractive. That's the end of that statement.
Thank you. So, Callie, before I open it up to members, do you want to comment on anything you've heard thus far?
Yeah, more than happy to.
Okay.
So, Councillor Atkinson raised a few points that I'd just like to talk to. Obviously, the town centre has been quieter than normal. You know, the COVID restrictions and people's unwillingness to make non-essential journeys is obviously playing a part of that. And we are trying to encourage people back into the town centre by putting on those community events and encouraging people to come into town. And we have seen increases in footfall during the closure. So we are seeing people come back into the town centre. In terms of accessing deliveries, most of the businesses in the town centre do benefit from access to the rear of their properties via the service roads which remain open. And where access for deliveries is needed from the two main roads, we have been able to accommodate that. So we've been in discussions with shops such as Emmaus, who have an access from Market Street to address some of those issues. And if you're aware of any businesses which are continuing to have issues with deliveries, then we're more than happy to discuss those and see whether we can come up with a solution that will fit. In terms of taxis and access for taxis, it is possible to provide an exemption for taxis. You see that in some town centres, so the centre of Southampton, for example, has an area which is allowed for buses and taxis only. However, I think in Eastleigh, if we were to open the roads to provide access for taxis, we'd probably see a large level of non-compliance with the other exemptions, just due to the fact that we haven't redesigned the space and we don't have any enforcement mechanism that we can use to prevent people who aren't taxi drivers from accessing the road. I'm pleased to see that that you agree with the changes to the parking charges, and you made some comments about the reasons by which we introduced the closure and the consultation phase. I'd probably point you in the direction of the committee report that was taken through ELAC on the 9th of June. So that includes information around why the consultation wasn't run up front. So there was a government mandate to get things quickly in place, ready for the 15th when the non-essential shops reopened. And obviously it does talk a little bit more about the opportunity to capitalise on the massive increase in walking and cycling that we saw during the kind of the full lockdown period. Just to add that we can continue to make changes. So whilst we're asking councillors to give us a bit of certainty around the length of the closure when it might be in place, we can continually make changes. And you've seen that through the changes we've already made and those that we're proposing today as well. I mean, in terms of the other comments that we received, we are asking people to park a little further away from the shops than they normally have to. And I think Eastleigh is quite lucky to have a good array of car parking in different locations dispersed across the town centre at a range of different price points. So it's likely that you can find parking that meets your need, although I appreciate we are asking people to walk a little further. I think that's all the comments, all the responses that I had to the comments that we've had written. But obviously if the councillors have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Callie. We are going to move into councillors asking questions. Can I just stress, please, councillors, this is questions only. We will move to debate a bit later. Councillor Bourne, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Chair. Very interesting to hear about the idea of the nighttime taxis, and I do agree with you, Callie, that if there were no barriers and it was unrestricted, it would be completely non-compliant. So my question is, could we look at how much maybe barriers would cost to allow taxi access? I think it would be expensive, but actually, if we look longer term, some sort of automatic barrier. Again, not sure how it would work because I don't think it could be manned by CCTV, etc. Or we could issue permits, especially to local taxi drivers, so that we favour them. But I do think it's a good point about getting the taxis there. But in order to make it safe, I think it will need to be some sort of automated barrier. So yeah, I think if we could look into how much that could cost, then it's something we could certainly look into it further. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Tyson-Payne.
Thank you. I think I'm possibly asking the same question as Councillor Bourne. So I'm interested to know how much difficulty there would be in having the not barriers necessarily, moving the stop signs so that the area was open at night, say from 8 p.m. in the evening till I don't know, 6 p.m. in the morning, to allow for the nighttime economy to move forward. I think it's slightly different to my question of Councillor Bourne's. And there's another question. The buy one get one free, that is an offer from Ringo. Yes. Have we looked at any buy one get one free from the businesses? So, some sort of incentivization from the businesses. I'm not quite sure how that works. Haven't thought it through, just crossed my mind. And another question was, we will continue to get data, I'm assuming, going forward, the footfall data. Can we have a review actually tabled in, yes, say, I don't know, first week in December? I'm just plucking a date out of the top of my head, maybe before the Christmas month kicks off. Just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, Callie, I can see you're noting these down. So are you happy that we get all the questions out and then you answer them at the end? Okay.
That's absolutely fine.
Right, so we'll go next to Councillor Bicknell for his questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. You're being optimistic for questions. Question.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Bicknell, can you put your camera on, please?
But it was. It is.
Oh, I think we've got too many cameras on, so could we? There we go. Thank you.
It's been on for quite some time. I just turned it off earlier when I dropped the blinds. Right, yes, question. It's picking up on what Councillor Bourne has said and other things have been said, in effect revolving around opening High Street, Market Street, both on a flexi time, for a better word, whether it be in the evening or a couple of hours as been suggested in the morning, if it's not when it's busy on a Saturday, whatever. This would actually relate probably mainly to the evenings. How would you go about moving cars that will park there and will still be there in the morning? You could put PCN notices on them. That still doesn't actually get rid of the car. So plain and simple as that, really. How do you physically remove cars when you want to re-pedestrianise? Which obviously in itself is just going to attract more cars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next we have a question from Councillor Mann, please.
Right, just a quick question. Cannot these businesses use their rear access for drop off and pick up rather than having to use the front? They can make more use of their rear accesses, can't they? Because they're still accessible. Even the roads are closed at the front. The rear access is still open for vehicle access, isn't it?
Yeah.
So could they not make more use of their rear access?
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. And next we go to Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, Darshan's just answered my question, really. I suppose in addition to that, what could we as a council do to support any adaptations those businesses need to make so we can try and build some bridges with them? Really, I think, you know, Councillor Bicknell's just pointed out one of the problems with having limited access to High Street and Market Street, particularly with venues that are selling alcohol. You will have people that are going to leave their car there, and you know, you then have a massive problem trying to move them the next day. The barriers for taxis seems too unworkable for me, because you're going to have taxis coming from all over the place. It's going to be very difficult to regulate access, and you are going to be talking about a lot of money to get those barriers installed. So really, I think what Darshan said it is, you know, certainly part of the way forward. I think we need increased dialogue with the businesses, but you know, what can we as a council do to make that possible, to help them do that, so that we can build some bridges and we're not putting all of the responsibility on them.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Councillor Clark. And we now have a question from Councillor Doogie, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Clark actually asked some of my questions, but it was around about how much more communication can we make sure we have with the businesses who are affected by this. And also, as on point 5 of the recommendation about the buses, now the bus stand being on Hans Way, how useful would that be to people coming in, and what other issues could that cause on the roads adjacent to that as well? I'm quite interested in that, because obviously if a bus is stuck or there's cars parked there and the bus can't get through, how helpful is that going to be? So yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I have a number of questions myself, but before we go to those, does any other councillor have any other questions they want to ask? No? Okay, so mine, Callie, are can you give us an idea? So I'm trying to understand the context of that this is all being done in. And obviously we've heard lots of comments from the businesses about how they feel about this. Can you give us any idea of how many people live within, say, half mile to 1 mile of the town centre? Mention was made of the Eat Out, I think it's Eat Out to Help Out scheme in Eastleigh. Do we know, do we have any idea of how successful that this has been? Because I'm sort of interested that, you know, one of the speakers kind of alluded to the fact that during that period of time that footfall went up, and she was sort of almost seeing that as, you know, well, I'm sort of interpreting it as, well, if it went up during that period, that suggests that access with the roads being closed isn't really an issue. But maybe I've misunderstood that. Yeah, the chart that you showed, sorry, let me see, what page is it on? On page 8 of your report, which is the one with the red and the blue, sort of, is it COVID or is it the road closure itself? sorry, can you just remind us, when was that particular piece of research done?
Okay.
Because I'm wondering, you know, was it done early on, and if it was, would people be answering the same in August, sort of thing? And similarly, I was just a bit confused. Underneath that chart, you have some data where you refer to what more the council could do to improve sort of things, and there's, you know, various different suggestions. Was that piece of research, was that done with businesses or was that done with residents? I'm not sure that you'll be able to answer this one, but I should have probably asked this of the group earlier. The Eastleigh Town Action Group, Town Centre Action Group, sort of claim that they're representing 90% of shop owners, the public, etc. Do we have any information about, you know, how the group was sort of formed? Is that a sort of self-proclaimed, we represent those people? Oops, sorry. I'm nearly getting at the end. We mentioned sort of with the parking, you mentioned about the long stay. I think, you know, the stats from the long stay car parks are a lot worse than they are from the short stay. Are you able to give us, even if it's a sort of rough estimate, of how many sort of office workers there are in the sort of in the central Eastleigh area? And do we have any idea about, you know, the percentage of those that are, you know, either back at work or maybe like the council, you know, that they're still sort of working from home and therefore not in the town centre and buying their lunches? Sorry, Wells Place car park.
Yep.
I'm just checking. So do you mean that the maximum time people will be able to stay in this car park will now be sort of 2 hours rather than 3 hours to create more churn, sort of thing?
Okay.
Sorry, that one's been covered. Okay, don't need to. Just one point in terms of the Ringo sort of option. Has any been, because obviously what that does is give an advantage to those people who have mobile technology. Has any thought or consideration been done of, you know, offering sort of a similar sort of, is there a way for people to receive the same benefit who don't have access to that sort of technology, just to be fair to all? I just wanted to check the number of disabled bays that we have now compared to before the restrictions came into place. Can you, am I right in thinking that we've actually, I thought we had maybe even one more than we had previously, but can you just confirm what the status is with that? And there's a point 54 is about the Hampshire Constabulary are responsible for policing. And I just know that I've received several comments and seen on social media things particularly about cyclists. And so I'm just very keen to hear what if there is anything else that we could do to actually stop people who are sort of, you know, cycling and particularly doing sort of wheelies and things like that through the town centre. Mm-hmm. And you'll be pleased to hear that's the last of my questions.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I think Councillor Doogie and Councillor Mann perhaps want to speak again. I'm not sure if they're still questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is a question. I think Tina has picked the bed out of the question, but I'll try it anyways. It's around the data. The data you put in the report seems to be around August time, which is when it was taken. So my question is, going forward, and given that we may have to have another sort of series of questions, how are you making sure that the pool of responses or the pool of people being asked questions, or those questions are relevant to the closures, is bigger? Because I think someone alluded to that it's not big enough. And yes, it is a contentious point, but I think we need a bigger pool to be able to give a clearer picture as to what exactly is happening in the town centre. So can you clarify into how exactly that pool is going to grow the next time this comes to play? Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Mann, you had another question.
Well, I just want to make a point. When these people talk about representing the businesses, don't you agree that the bid represents all the businesses in the town centre? I've been on the bid myself for a few years, until recently, a couple of years ago, when I was doing the mayor's, doing the mayor's stuff, that I haven't had time. I had to give it up. We never heard of this organization. It was never mentioned. It's only popped up now because one or two people want to complain about what the council is doing. And some of these businesses been dragged onto it, I reckon. I don't think that, it's come from outside when you think about it. Bid's the one who represents all the businesses in the town centre, so we need to work with Bid all the time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mann. And we have another question from Councillor Clark, please. Keeping you busy tonight, Callie.
Yeah, just off the back of that, how could the Bid not know about this meeting this evening? Okay, so either the Bid aren't being proactive in communication, or something else is wrong, but they should have known about tonight's meeting. And it doesn't really look good, particularly when you're sitting here as a councillor and the representative from the Bid had very little to say about this when it was first decided to close Market Street and High Street.
Oh, we seem to have lost Councillor Clark there. Oh, he might be back.
I'm still here. I'm still here. So
Okay.
my question was about the Bid. How could they not know about tonight's meeting? And then I made an observation that they had very little to say when this was first decided. So it just doesn't look good to me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Oh, we've got Councillor Doogie who has another question.
Very sorry, Tina. I seem to be picking out lastly. So just on back on that one, can you clarify the level of involvement from the Bid since this started? Because I noted, well, they noted that they've not been involved in any discussion whatsoever. So can you clarify from your point of view, given that you've been there to start, what level of involvement they've had, and what recommendation or what was anything that put forward towards the objection from the business they represent as well?
Okay. Oh no, Councillor Bicknell just got in there before I called time. So Councillor Bicknell, the last word goes to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I'm just picking up that obviously these last few questions with reference to the Bid, and quite rightly the Bid is the official body that represents all the retailers in the town centre. However, this is more of a statement than actually a question, so I think that the questions that have been asked on the Bid need very careful answering, given the fact that they are the official body, and actually we don't want to be seen to be, for a better word, I don't know what the better word is. I just think we need to be careful on how we answer the Bid. We need to work with the Bid. at the end of the day has been said. We don't really want to be undermining the bid, and that's, I think, any questioning on the detail that the bid have had into this is probably not helpful going forward, and ideally is probably not something that would be right and appropriate to be discussed in public. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So Callie, I think we'll let you respond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a long list of questions. Please remind me if I think I've picked them all up, but let me know if I've missed anything. So just starting off then around barriers and what we could do to introduce physical measures into the town centre. That is an option. It would normally be an option that you consider associated with a more permanent scheme, and as you rightly say, they would come at a cost. So that type of measure is expensive. There are a number of different options when you look at the entrances to pedestrianised areas. Things like rising bollards or moving bollards can be very expensive, but the same effect can be achieved by using coffin bollards, which sit flush into the carriageway and can be opened and closed. At present, because of the temporary nature of the closure, in order to implement a timed closure, it would require the removal and the reinstatement of barriers on at every point, so on opening and on closing of the roads. And just in terms of how difficult it would be to remove vehicles from within the closure as the roads become closed again, what you would normally see is that the closure comes into effect and we give people an hour before which they have to remove their vehicle. And obviously when you're in a pedestrianised area in a vehicle, you need to travel, with due care and attention to other road users. So it wouldn't be insurmountable to provide a timed closure, but it would be more expensive because it would require staffing, normally at quite antisocial hours in the mornings and in the evenings to reinstate the barriers and remove them. In terms of the kind of businesses offering incentives for parking, obviously Eastleigh Borough Council runs most of the car parks in the town centre, and I know there is an arrangement with Sainsbury's where they cover the cost of the parking for people who spend in their shop. Just because of the way that our ticketing machines work, introducing that kind of scheme is quite complicated, and we were looking for something that could be done quite swiftly in response to local the local concerns that have been raised about parking arrangements. But again, there wouldn't be any issue in us exploring that further. Obviously, we will continue to gather data. So the footfall counters are in place. They tick along every day. And I'm more than happy to provide updates on that data as we move forward. Obviously, we're watching with interest what happens on a week-by-week basis. So if you'd like to hear more information in December, that would be absolutely fine. In terms of increasing engagement on public feedback, obviously at present it's been difficult for us to do face-to-face survey work just because of the COVID restrictions. But we'll have a think about how we can encourage more people to respond. We did get a very good response rate from the Borough News e-edition survey. So that was that simple yes/no survey, and we could definitely look at running something like that again. So I've already mentioned about timed closures and the moving of them. So can businesses use their rear access? That is possible. So businesses in the town centre do benefit from rear access, and we designed the closures to minimise the impact on that. Some businesses offer up free customer car parking to the rear of their properties. Others use it as staff car parking. It does depend on the different businesses. And in terms of adaptations to help with that, we'd have to look at what funding was available. I know that obviously businesses have received funding during the lockdown kind of phase, and I'm not sure how much of that is available to support businesses in making adaptations, but I'd happily have that conversation with our economic development team. I mean, introducing I think one of the councillors mentioned about introducing an exemption for taxis being a bit costly. I think we'd have to investigate the ways in which an exemption for taxis would operate, and we could come up with some costings. So there's lots of opportunity for us to continue to make changes in the town centre whilst the temporary order is in place. So we can look into that and provide you with some more information on that option if you'd like. On how we engage with businesses, so we have been working with the bid. We have been engaging directly with businesses, and obviously we want to continue to do that. Having a consultation and a discussion about what's happening in the town centre is really important, and for all parties to be able to participate in that. In terms of the bus stand at the shop mobility, the area that we are proposing the bus stand to be placed is currently double yellow lines, and it is opposite the junction, so it's not an attractive place for parking, although sometimes blue badge holders do use that area. The community transport service obviously picks up some vulnerable, elderly and immobile residents, and so providing them with a space where they can safely disembark, we feel is proportionate to the loss of that area of double yellow lines. The bus stand would also apply at certain times of day, so it wouldn't result in the loss of that area at other times of day when the bus wasn't expected. In terms of the number of people living within 1 or 1.5 miles, so I did done a bit of research on population and distance from the town centre, and roughly it's around 8,500 households, or about 19,700 people who live within that contour of the town centre. You asked a question about that Eat Out to Help Out footfall. So the chart in the report, which shows the weekly footfall figures, covers the period up until the end of August. So that does show the period that covers the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. And you can see from that chart that there has been an incremental increase in the number of people in town week on week since the reopening of non-essential retail and the road closures coming into effect. So people are still coming back into town, and that is increasing still. I don't have the data for September just yet, but I hope to get that this week, and obviously be happy to share that with councillors as we move forward. In terms of the road closure COVID chart, so that's undertaken in the business survey, which ran between the 1st and the 8th of July, as did the feedback from the kind of what businesses would like us to improve within the town centre. So that data came from that business survey. I think we had intended originally to run that survey more than once, but I think we got the feedback from businesses was that they would prefer us to talk with them in person, and that's why we went out around town talking with businesses, interviewing them. So we have continued that conversation with businesses, but in a slightly different way. In terms of the town centre action group, we were informed of the action group. Oh, I don't have the date in front of me, I'm afraid. In July, I believe it was set up after the road closures came into effect, or very shortly after the proposals came forward. And obviously, I think the group are made up of a number of businesses, number of residents from the town centre, and so they feel that they represent that group. Obviously, that's, you know, kind of the political side of the council's operation, and I'm sure that the group would be happy to have that discussion with you. In terms of, I'm just going to skip the bid question for now and come to it last. Just in terms of the long stay car parking, we think there's somewhere in the region of 5 to 7,000 people who aren't commuting on a daily basis. There's a number of ways that we can tell this. So we can see how many people are using the permits, the parking permits within Mitchell House. So you'll see that Mitchell Road car park has seen a very slight increase in use, but I think the maximum that we've seen on a day, on a single day, was 13%, when normally it operates in, you know, somewhere between 80 and 90%. So you can see there that there's obviously a change in use, and then also in terms of kind of numbers on public transport and our normal commuter patterns that we'd see. So somewhere between 5 and kind of 7,000 people not commuting into town. The next question I think you asked, Tina, was around the maximum duration of stay in the Wells Place car park if we're to remove the tariff that's proposed. So at present, 4 hours is the maximum stay. 2 hours is the most normal stay. So that's the kind of the most popular tariff. And so effectively we would be removing the 3 hour tariff, but keeping the 4 hour tariff. So the idea is that it encourages people who want to stay that bit longer to park in a different car park close by that is suited to medium to long stay, so that we're getting the turnover in Wells Place, which obviously is surface access and is close to the town centre, so is attractive to people who perhaps have mobility issues but don't qualify for a blue badge. The access around Ringo. So Ringo has a good range of ways in which you can buy a ticket. I was pleased to hear. So you can, let me just double check in the report. So you can use an iPhone or an Android app. So using a smartphone, you can pay on the website, but you can also use a normal phone, or you can send an SMS text message. So there are a number of different ways in which you can apply. It doesn't require you to have kind of the most up-to-date smartphone to do that. And most people nowadays do own a mobile phone, even if it's not web enabled. So they can still make that phone call or send a text in order to qualify. So we would hope that everybody can benefit from that offer. And also there's that added benefit of reducing the number of touch points that people have while they're in their car park. So just keeps people a little bit safer while they're visiting town centre. And then you're right, so the number of disabled bays in the town centre has gone up as a result of the changes that we've introduced. We originally, when the scheme was, when the road closures came into place and we had provided all of the disabled bays in Lee Road, in the eastern end of Lee Road, we had lost 1 car parking space. But the introduction of the additional bays in Mitchell Road and the additional bays in Hansway Car Park have resulted in an increase in parking for disabled blue badge holders of 5 spaces. So we have seen an increase in the number of dedicated disabled bays. Obviously, anybody with a disabled bay can also still benefit from the ability to park in any marked bay in any of our car parks. So they don't have to go and park in a disabled bay, they can park in any bay. And they can also park in certain positions around the town centre on double yellow lines where they're not causing an obstruction and that's really important to stress, where they're not causing an obstruction for up to 3 hours. So that gives people another opportunity to find a suitable parking space in the town centre, and there are some of those in and around the service roads and in the surrounding roads as well. We are aware of some of the issues that have been raised around cycling. While the vast majority of cyclists will cycle responsibly, we know that there are some people who will ignore the signs that say that the roads are closed, and we have seen teenagers doing wheelies down the high street. We are looking at what we can do to try and address those issues, and that might be increasing cycle parking at the entrances to town, working with the town rangers to encourage them to tackle people, not tackle them, but not physically tackle them, sorry, but to talk to them about their behaviour, and also to see what we can do around improved signage. Obviously there's a balance to be had, isn't there, with any kind of signage, that sometimes the people who the sign is intended for won't pay any attention to the sign. So we have to strike that balance, and obviously we don't want to introduce lots of street clutter while we're doing that. So we'll be looking at that as we move forward. And then just in terms of the bid, so we have been engaging with the bid throughout this. We've had discussions with Teresa Swan, the bid manager, around a number of different issues that have arisen, and around the engagement with businesses to gather feedback. Unfortunately, there was an oversight and we didn't invite them to this meeting this evening. Obviously, we're always interested in their view, and we want to work with them. And so apologies that wasn't undertaken, but we will be working with them as we move forward. And like I say, there is still opportunity for us to make changes to the town centre. It's an ever-evolving scheme that can take into account different issues as they crop up. And we'll be pleased to see the introduction of pavement licences the pavement licence applications coming in at the moment. And we'll be pleased to see things happening in the town centre. And we're also working with Hampshire County Council on different ways that we can implement changes in the town centre. So all of that will kind of change the town centre bit by bit. Oh, Tina, I'm afraid you're on mute.
Tina. You're still muted, Tina. Oh no, you were, sorry, you were unmuted and then it muted you again.
Thank you, Callie. You've certainly earned your money this evening. So before we go to debate, do we have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Irish. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mann. OK, so open to debate. Who would like to kick us off? Stunned silence. OK, Councillor Tyson-Payne, over to you.
Sorry, Councillor Mann, can you mute your microphone, please?
So on the whole, I'm quite in favour of the proposals that have been put forward. I know that's not going to go down well with some of the businesses. However, I've been visiting the town centre more frequently recently, and actually one of the reasons I've been coming to the town centre more frequently is I can walk around more easily. I prefer the ability to walk in the street, and actually people are more and more, in my experience, walking in the streets. It was I was nearly knocked over on Saturday actually by a child walking down the middle of the street, and the mother actually said to me, "Oh, isn't it lovely that the children can be freer?" And I thought that was really quite nice. I like a lot of the proposals. I do, however, have some reservation about it being open through the night, closed through the night, and impacting the nighttime economy, particularly in the run up to Christmas, I think. So I would like us to perhaps investigate not a permanent up-down barrier, but look at the costings of opening it for, say, Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings. And I take the point that councillors have made about cars getting left, but do you know, that's always happened. Personally, I've never gone out and left my car anywhere because I've had too much to drink. Heaven forbid that I should have done such a thing. But you know, when you do that thing, you do the following morning think, where's my car? Let's go fetch it. So I think there's something more that we could do around that. I'm rambling again. I like the stuff that's going on in the town centre at the moment. The violinist was fantastic, and I think that's bringing a new type of life to the town centre. I also note I have received personal emails from residents asking for the town to keep the High Street and Market Street closed. So those are not representations that have come to us as a group, but to me personally as a councillor. I quite like what's going on. I think we can do more. I think we can make it better. I really do like the fact that there's an encouragement now not to drive your car into the town. There's no need. I look at the local shopping areas that I go to. So where would I go to? I go to Winchester, I go to Southampton, I go to Whiteley quite a lot, and those are all places where you can't park your car outside the shop. So I think that's quite good. I think I've made all my discussive notes. Let me have a quick look. Yes, I think that's all my notes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tyson-Payne. So we're going to move to Councillor Bourne, and then he'll be followed by Councillor Doogie. You're muted, Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's quite clear the town centre is quiet because of COVID, not because people can't park there. We are well served by car parks all around the town centre. The occupancy of those car parks is nowhere near full and hasn't been for months. We also have the service roads that disabled people can park in, and we have an awesome mobility shop that people who need it can use it. And I have had correspondence from disabled people saying that they used to go and park outside their shop that they needed to go to, which they've had better luck than me, because whenever I've driven down there when the roads are open, you could never park outside a specific shop because most of the bays were taken up. So, you know, where people have mobility issues, I understand that, but I think we've done very well in making extra provision for disabled spaces. You know, in the Swan Centre, you can park in Wells Place, and then for the other shops, you can park in the service roads. So my next point is about the pubs, restaurants and cafes. They need extra capacity due to social distancing and table service. So therefore, tables outside will provide more space for those businesses and help them. It will also create a more vibrant town centre. The government themselves say the risk of COVID outside is minimal. Therefore, people sat outside are going to be safer than sat inside a pub or a restaurant. Pavement licenses will help create, sorry, I've said that about the vibrant centre. I'm a little bit sceptical of businesses that haven't opened and are using the furlough scheme, blaming the road closure on the harm to their business. I think if you open, then people will come. Personally, I don't believe that there is enough space on the pavements when people are queuing outside. In my experience of Greggs and Subway, you have not got 2 metres space, so you do need to walk in the road. And lunchtimes and weekends, there have been lots of people walking in the roads. The nighttime less so. So I would be in favour of exploring something there, although it could be costly, but there could be advantages to help the businesses, and there's less of an issue with the amount of people walking the streets that would be there. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Doogie has said for the time being he doesn't want to speak. So which of the councillors would like to participate next? Has everybody really said everything they want to say on this important issue? Oh, Councillor Tyson Payne would like to speak again.
I forgot to mention, and actually Councillor Bourne really prompted this with me. I really do believe that the quietness is down to COVID. A couple of weeks ago, I had a really exciting day in London. I walked the Monopoly board with my nieces and nephews, and I was absolutely staggered how quiet London was. It was frighteningly quiet, and it made me realise just quite how much people aren't going back out. So I really do feel that there's an opportunity here for businesses to look at other ways in which they run their businesses, other ways in which they encourage people into their businesses. I really liked the idea that Councillor Mann made about the fact that actually, if you've got a rear entrance for deliveries to be coming to, why can't the businesses look at ways in which that could be the entrance to their business? I know shops, particularly the shop front, yes, is very important, but I do wonder if some of the nighttime economy places are the Chalet in particular. I like the Chalet. I like it in the daytime. I was disappointed on Saturday when it wasn't open. I was going to go there for a cheese board, but that didn't happen. But I do think that there are other opportunities. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think there are opportunities there. And environmentally, this is a really good thing for our town and our whole borough. So I will be supporting this proposal. I think it has a lot of good. I do think we should look further at what we can do for the nighttime economy. Although, people shouldn't get in their cars when they're going out. Enough said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson Payne. We're now over to Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't think it was people not wanting to speak. People probably are in the same position as me, thinking about the things that have been said tonight, because there are a few things that I haven't thought about so much before, but the business people have brought to my attention. I think my reservations about the first recommendation, well, if I say that I support most of the recommendations, I'm happy to support them. My reservations now about the road closure are partly to do with the nightlife and helping the nightlife thrive, but also that there is quite a solid body of public opinion against the road closures, and whatever way we look at it, well, Alex is shaking his head, even though on each of those pieces of data we were presented with, we had sort of 54%, 55% in favour on each one. There was a significant number of the public opposed. This petition that's been brought forward, I'm sure there can be all sorts of questions about how that petition has been compiled. There are clearly a large number of people who are willing to put their name against the road closures. So, my concern there is that we need to really manage all the messages that we put out to the public to try and bring the community together and bring the town centre together, because it does bother me, and I think it could be a real problem for the town centre if this becomes an ongoing acrimonious debate on social media. I think people will see it and it will just put them off the town centre. So I think we as a council just need to be really careful over our PR and see what we can do to build bridges with those people who are objecting to the road closures. So I think I think one of my concerns isn't so much that people can't drive close to the businesses. It is that the way the road closure has been done, necessarily because of the circumstances with COVID, is that that they do give the high street a makeshift sort of appearance. There are temporary signs in place which are not very inviting, and I think it just looks like a place that at the moment, that might put some people off visiting some of those businesses. So I do have those concerns, and so whilst I'm going to support the recommendations, I would like to see greater dialogue between the council and the businesses to see whether some adaptations can be made, particularly with the nighttime economy, and what we can do to improve the appearance of the town centre in communication, in collaboration with the businesses. A couple of the businesses said negative things about things which we as ELAC have put in with good intentions. So I'd like to hear more about their ideas of what they think would help their business in terms of physical improvements to the area. So I do have reservations, I suppose summarised by the amount of opposition, even though I don't think it's a majority of people opposed, and the opposition from businesses who we have to respect because they're putting their money into the town centre at the end of the day. I do have those reservations. On the other side, I do take Alex's point, for example, that Greg's is an example of one business that would very quickly run into problems with maintaining social distancing if the road closures were lifted. And I also think that, as Councillor Tyson Payne said, other areas that are pedestrianised like Whiteley are not suffering, a shortage of custom. But going back to my point earlier, I think that one of the reasons why Whiteley and Winchester, for example, aren't suffering that is because their whole design is very attractive, whereas at the moment people are walking into quite a makeshift town centre with lots of temporary signs. So I will support all the recommendations. However, as I say, I think there should be ongoing dialogue with the businesses over what physical improvements we can make to make the town centre more attractive to customers. I also think that we should look into what we can do over the nighttime economy, as Sarah suggested, maybe make some alterations for the evenings. And I also think we should look into what we can do as a council to support adaptations to the rear entrances. So, for example, the chalet could get taxis easily to the door so that their customers can get into them. But again, that would bring up the issue of maybe looking makeshift and putting people off. We'd have to make sure that whatever was done would be appealing to potential customers. So those are my thoughts, and a lot of my thoughts are new because I've been listening to what the business people have said tonight, and I'm grateful for them coming along.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we're now going to Councillor Irish.
Thank you, Chair. Am I there?
You are indeed.
Yeah, I fully support the recommendations. I think they're really, really good. It will help us through this very uncertain period that we're going to be going through between now and April next year. But I would like to point out that as a person who used to drive into High Street and Market Street, most of the time when you got to Market Street, you couldn't park anywhere because there weren't any parking spaces. So I'd just give up and go home. And I wonder how many more people like me that did that. So maybe there are more people visiting now. I don't know. And also, of course, we've got to remember that as people are not working, we're not in their offices like Eastleigh Borough Council and other places. They're not there to pop out at lunchtime and buy a sandwich. They're not there to pop in the shops. And that's a big difference as well. So I think those factors should be taken into account, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irish. We now move to Councillor Bicknell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, some interesting comments, much of which I happen to agree with. I will be supporting the recommendations, and I think it's important that actually we keep the whole thing very flexible, which is why I would support actually extending the TRO until April 2021. There's an awful lot that can happen between now and 2021. We all know that the number of cases of COVID-19 are rising exponentially at the moment, and obviously we now have the rule of 6, which obviously is also going to affect restaurants and pubs. Which actually means they're going to need more space overall, I would think. So, and that's just where we are at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen at Christmas, and we certainly don't know what's going to happen in January and February. So I think it's having the TRO until April 21. It's a good safety net, but it does actually need to be done with some flexibility, taking into account lots of things that have already been said, and that's the right and proper thing to do. But of course, the overriding right and proper thing to do is protect public health, and that is why these measures were brought in the first place, to protect public health, and they need to continue. I, for one, am paranoid about coronavirus. I don't mind admitting it in public. I do everything I possibly can to avoid people and keep my 2 meters. I always walk down the centre of the street, in High Street and Market Street. And that. I can also speak, picking up on something that Councillor Tyson-Payne said with reference to commuters and how this will actually affect Eastleigh Town Centre. I can speak with experience on commuters, being a train driver. I take commuter trains into London, I take commuter trains out of London. I go past the major stations between Bournemouth and London Waterloo, and I can see the car parks, which prior to coronavirus were absolutely jammed packed with commuters. They are empty. They are less than 25% full. It is a case of spot the car in the commuter car parks, because the commuters are not travelling. That also means in the town centre that we've also lost a big chunk of trade, that road closures, whether they're in place or not in place, will not replace, because that big trunk of trade going for breakfast, coffee, dinner, and picking up bits and pieces on the way home for evening meal or snack just isn't there. I'm not surprised that Councillor Tyson-Payne was able to walk around London and found it very quiet, because basically you've only pretty much got residents in London. You've got no tourists and you've got hardly any commuters, and that's fact. Just picking up on some of the other comments, we need to obviously take into account the petition and the concerns of the businesses and the traders. But just picking up on the actual survey and the petition and that, I just want to draw everyone's attention again back to the e-surveys. That the e-survey that had a target audience of 15,000 attracted 3,000 responses, of which 67 were in favour of keeping the roads open. 67% is actually 2,100 people. It is fair to say that even before coronavirus, that high streets across the country were declining for a whole multitude of reasons. A lot of it was people changing their shopping habits online. People would deem the high street as a place to go, a shop window to look at the goods, handle the goods, and then go home and order them online with their favourite online provider. And obviously one of the biggest online providers has just created thousands of jobs because their business is booming. Obviously food retail is booming as well, and has done very well, and obviously the big supermarkets and such like. So the high street was already changing. Businesses were already going to have to adapt, and they were doing so slowly. High streets were going to become much more a place of destination than a place to shop. And it is very well documented that those retailers that did not adapt would not survive. Unfortunately, coronavirus has probably brought that forward between, I don't know, 5 to 10 years possibly, where people have changed their shopping habits. It's all about confidence. People will go to the town centre with confidence, At the moment, a lot of them haven't got confidence because of coronavirus. They will also go there if they, if there's something that people want, something that's not perhaps online or a place of destination. So the whole thing with reference to the town centre is very complex and is not actually going to be solved by just one thing and one thing alone. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of dialogue, as everyone's already said, but it was actually happening anyway. Coronavirus has actually been a catalyst, and so it's just brought a lot of things forward. But as I say, I'm in favour. I will be voting for the recommendations. They provide certainty, they provide flexibility. They are clear, they are concise, and they are easy to understand. And the only thing I shall add on to that is if a lot of other things have been clear, concise and easy to understand, then actually we might not be in the situation we are at the moment with the rule of 6, etc., etc. But that's a whole different topic altogether. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bicknell. So turning to Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to apologise to Councillor Clark for shaking my head when he was talking, very unprofessional. But I will say that the number of people who want the roads closed, who have contacted me personally and via social media, far outnumber those who want the roads to reopen. I just wanted to say that. I also think it's quite clear that the public want the market and the car boot to open. So I think as a council we should be doing everything we can to reinstate these events, which, as well as bringing people into the town centre, do provide a social outside experience that people can COVIDly secure, meet people, etc. And hopefully local businesses can take advantage of it. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bourne. Over to Councillor Doogie, please.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to say, I'm going to give way to Councillor Clark so you can respond to that, and then I'll come back in.
OK, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks for that apology. I'd never disputed that, there's all this evidence that a majority are in favour. What concerns me is that, we need to bring community together. We've had lots of reasons why communities have been divided in recent years, and we need to bring the community together. And we just need to recognise that however much a majority is in favour, there is a significant number who clearly have problems with this plan. And I think we've got to be careful about how we communicate with those people. And we've got to listen and see where we can compromise. It's been said that there is flexibility in these recommendations. I think the very last thing we want is to be seen as a council to be ignoring the concerns that have been raised tonight and the concerns that have been raised elsewhere, because the tone of that sort of debate will in itself start damaging trade in the town centre. It will just make the town centre look a troublesome place to be, and that's in no one's interests.
OK, thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Doogie, did you want to come in now?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Councillor Clark actually said something I would have said, but for me, it's mainly about communication. I think, given that this was short notice, and also as well as the fact that government gave us such short notice to put this in place, communication clearly wasn't great, which is why we have some businesses who are not happy with this. I think going forward, we need to have a stronger communication base, both with the businesses who are directly impacted by this, but also as well with the whole community, so we understand where everybody is standing in terms of the road closures and how we can fit the needs of everybody in. Like Councillor Clark said, we need to take into account people who object to this. We can easily get into the argument about facts and who's right or who's wrong, how many signatures have taken place, but at the end of the day, that's irrelevant, because that's two parties coming against one another just to dispute one of your facts. We need to have more of a dialogue, and we need to be able to communicate effectively and have a better outcome with people who are directly affected by it, especially the businesses. And also as well, we need to understand that these businesses are putting money into the town centre, and they're investing into our community. So we need to make sure they're part of our community. So if we don't do that, then we're losing trade. And as someone said, they may have to let some people go. We don't want that. We want people to come to the town centre and to enjoy being around it. But we need to do that by being able to build a stronger community. And I think someone alluded to as well, during these times, it's important to have a strong community. And I think for me personally, I think communication is the key. And if we as a council are seen as as an organisation that cannot talk or have a discussion with residents or businesses, then it's bad on us. So we need to be able to make sure that we can do that. And another point I want to make is the fact that there's a lot of debates been going on about the roads not being closed and how it affects us. And I think most of that debate has been around people's own interests. I mean, these road closures came into effect purely because of the virus. And we needed to put forward people's health and well-being at the forefront. As Councillor Bicknell said, he's paranoid. So obviously you can imagine if he's paranoid, there are people like him who are paranoid about that, and they want to keep a safe distance. So these road closures made sure that was able to happen. So that's something I think everybody should keep in mind when we're arguing our case and saying that we want this to happen for our benefit, because we're not benefiting from this. We need to make sure that we're first of all looking out for people who are gonna, first of all, for business owner, people are going to come to our business. Are they going to feel stuff come to our business? Are they going to be comfortable? Are they not going to be paranoid? These are the things we need to be put at the forefront of things before we can come and say, look, we need help on this. This is not helping us. We need to make sure we are overall looking at the health condition of our residents and whether they can move safely to be able to enjoy both the businesses and both the town centre as it is. That's all I have to say there. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Doogie. No other comments from other councillors. I'll put my thoughts into the arena if no one else wants to speak. No? Okay. Obviously, most of the arguments have already been put forward, and as has been stated by others, I think it is really important that we do stress that this measure was taken as a response to a public health emergency. I think it's fair to say, and unfortunately coronavirus, you know, the cases seem to be moving in the wrong direction. I think the last few days it's been over 3,000 plus cases, and they are rising in Hampshire too, although I'm pleased to say that you know, we don't obviously have as serious a situation as other areas. And so I think we have to keep that in mind. And I would say lots of the conversations I've had and that residents that have contacted me are, and I did a lot of shopping for vulnerable people, you know, during the lockdown. And what I would say is that a lot of people are saying to me that actually they still feel very frightened to come out, and that actually I had someone the other day who I was quite surprised, who said, you know, they were in the town centre for the first time really since the lockdown, and they went to go into the Swan Centre and they actually said, no, it was just too many people for me. It was sort of too much. They felt sort of safer outside. So I don't think we should underestimate that. I have to say I take challenge with, I think it was Councillor Atkinson, who said that there's no vibrancy in the town. Well, I don't know where Councillor Atkinson has been for the last few Saturdays, but I can assure you that if you were in the vicinity of Artisan in the afternoon on a Saturday, there was plenty of vibrancy going on. There was a real buzz around, you know, that there were you know, some tables outside, there was some music, we had local performers, we've had such a variety of performances. There's been the street art, there's been the storytellers, there's been the bunting. You know, an effort has been made to actually really remind people of just, you know, how you can take fun again for being in the town centre, and it is actually a good place to be and we can be safe. A lot of people have commented about walking on, oh, people aren't walking in the road, they're walking on the pavement. Well, really, is that any surprise? Because ever since we were, you know, we've been small children, we've always been sort of trained to stay on the pavement. It's kind of ingrained. But actually myself and my husband, we have been deliberately walking up the centre of the road. And what I've noticed is more and more people are actually doing that. So I think things are changing. But I think the arguments that the businesses gave us today, I think we really should pause and think really hard about those, because all those people, they're very passionate about their businesses. They have invested in this place that all of us sort of call home. And it's in all our interests, as I said right at the beginning, that Eastleigh becomes, or continues to be, I should say, a really great place, whether you live here or you work here or you just come here for leisure. You know, we need to secure the long-term sustainability of this town. And as Councillor Bicknell said, coronavirus has changed the world in a way that we just didn't think was imaginable. And things are happening now. You know, what's happened to the air industry, for example, would have seemed unbelievable a year ago. So we have to face up to the reality. And as Councillor Doogie said, we have to bring the whole community together, because, you know, what doesn't serve any of us is having, you know, the people who argue strongly one side and then the people who argue the other, and basically we just have two camps. We need to come together. As residents who live here, we can come into the town centre and we can support our local businesses. We can shop locally, but also it's about those local businesses sort of, you know, doing good old-fashioned marketing, you know, and making their businesses as attractive as possible. We as the council, we need to put on programmes to make it an attractive place to be, and we do all of that together, because ultimately we're all invested in this, aren't we? You know, this is our community, and it's up to us whether it fails or not. So I have to say I feel slightly differently about the nighttime economy. I mean, one of the advantages of Eastleigh is the centre is incredibly compact, and the two roads, the central part that we're talking about where the roads are shut, I'm putting to one side for the moment the issue of people with mobility issues. But for the majority of people, I think if you wanted to go out for a night and you wanted to go to the chalet, for example, I think it would be perfectly reasonable that a taxi could drop you off at the closure sign point and you could walk down to the chalet. I think that is perfectly reasonable, as well as the option of actually, I must say I've been to the chalet several times. It's an absolutely fantastic local business, really enjoy sort of going there, but I haven't actually gone to the rear of the building now. I know in the old days when it used to be JKS, sorry, the wine bar, there was a rear access which you could actually use. I don't know if that's still the case, but maybe, as people have said, you know, that is an option. So I think it was a fundamental error not to have included the bid in tonight's meeting, and that's really unfortunate. But going forward, I know that there have been there've been lots of conversations with the bid, and there certainly will be more so going forward. And one way that I can be sure that they are definitely included going forward is that I will be having a regular meeting with them. So if nothing else, I can make sure that that's happening. I think Councillor Tyson Payne brought in some really important issues about sort of air quality. And actually, I know before we were told about the car journeys being made into town centres and things, and actually, you know, most journeys made in cars, I think 40% of them are for less than 2 miles. And so we know that there is a connection between the quality of air and also coronavirus. I think that's really important, because ultimately the last thing surely all of us want is to have a winter lockdown. And if we don't get a grip of the situation, then that is what I fear will happen. So I would feel really uncomfortable about opening the roads at this time. In terms of the car boot and the market, then we have already started to have conversations about how we could do that. And there are various different proposals that we are considering. And we are hoping that we will be able to do some kind of assessment of those proposals and get something in line for the Christmas sort of period. But it may be that that is just too tight for us to do that. But certainly, we certainly want to do that. And again, that's a golden opportunity for the community to get involved and to help us. Let's have a real community market. So, all in all, I think we all have a part to play in this, and what we need to do is to work far harder to actually bring all sides of this together. I think probably we need an action plan. You know, how are we going to build a sustainable town centre? That's something that we, is really important to all of us. So I think we have to get working on that as quickly as possible, and we need to make sure that the bid is involved in that. And obviously we need to make sure the local businesses as well as residents, and that we make our town centre as inclusive and as accessible as we possibly can, so that Eastleigh remains the friendly place it's always been, and that we continue to be recognised as, being the 5th most attractive place for people to bring up families. That's a real accolade, the whole of the UK. So I think we should be proud of that, and we don't want to lose that. And as Councillor Doogie said, communication is absolutely key in this. So I think it's time to get to the vote. So can I ask Laura, can you please explain to us the new voting system that we will be using tonight?
Of course I can, Chair. So councillors, you will be aware and hopefully remember that I sent you the document round on how you use the new voting system. A vote will appear in your chat box, and you just need to cast your vote and remember to hit submit vote, because we had some issues with that at Audit and Resources and Policy and Performance. I'm just going to do the vote now, so bear with me a couple of seconds while I set it up, because we have to do it live, and then hopefully this will work.
That's like someone's got a kettle boiling in the background.
Right, that vote's now live, councillors, so please can you all cast your votes? So Councillor Mann. Oh, and that's 100%. Bear with me 1 second while I validate that they are all just councillor votes. I'm sure they are. That's correct, Chair, 100% all in favour.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Laura. So we now move on to agenda item number 9, which is the Newtown Area Controlled Parking Zone Traffic Regulation Order. Can I remind councillors that you must be present for the duration of this item in order that you vote, so in order that you're able to take part in the vote for this. And can I ask Ben, please, to present your report? You're muted, Ben.
I got it. It's been a long evening. I do apologise. Thanks for the introduction. I'm now going to share my slide presentation with you, and then I'll talk you through the slides. So if you just bear with me, because my internet's a little bit slow here. So I'm just trying to share my slideshow with you now. Thank you, Chair, for the introduction. My name is Ben Murphy, and I'm the Traffic Management Engineer representing Eastleigh Borough Council, and I'm here to review Area CPZ on-street parking places review. So first we're going to look at the background information, then we'll review, summarise the comments received, discuss the proposals, and then the engineer's recommendations. So moving on to my next slide. A planning condition associated with the Ashton Gardens development and Eastleigh Borough Council was agreed to allocate funds from the Section 106 agreement. So the aim of this was to advertise a traffic order to introduce restrictions which would minimise the impact that extra vehicles associated with the development would have on local on-street parking spaces. A proposal to introduce permit holder only parking bays in Mount View and Ashton Gardens with the additional no waiting at any time restrictions was advertised on the 17th of July 2020, and this advert remained up for 3 weeks. Residents of the newly built Ashton Gardens development would not be eligible for a permit because their needs have been met by provision within the development stipulated at the planning stage. So we received 7 representations to the proposals and a petition representing 14 separate addresses, all of which objected to the scheme proposals. So no acknowledgements of support for the proposals were received. So moving on to my next slide. Now there are 3 slides showing representations received with the engineer's responses. Now I'm not going to read through all of these comments. Instead, I'll pick the first 2 comments and then move on to discuss the summary of representations received and the engineer's recommendation. So the first comment received was, I object to proposed waiting and parking restrictions for Mount View and Ashton Gardens. My concern with permit bays is that if all of the surrounding streets have the same zone, then there'll be no change in the horrific parking situation in Mount View. Now the recommendation is to withdraw proposals to introduce permit holder parking bays along Mount View. B, I object to the new proposals in Mount View. The parking along this road is already difficult for residents that live here. Some of us must park on the yellow lines to be able to park in Mount View. To allow permit parkers from other roads will make this very difficult for residents. So again, the recommendation here is to withdraw the proposals to introduce permit holder parking bays along Mount View. Right, so now I'm going to move on to the summary of representations and engineer's response. Summary of representations. So now I'm going to discuss a summary of representations and the engineer's recommendations committee. So we received 7 representations, as I mentioned earlier, and a petition relating to 14 separate addresses. All representations objected to the proposals, and particularly the creation of permit parking bays in Mount View and Ashton Gardens. Now the engineer's recommendation. The aim of this scheme is to improve the amount of on-street parking for residents in Mount View, Mill Street, and that part of Ashton Gardens which has been adopted as highway, namely the parking bays near the junction of Ashton Gardens and Mill Street. So after reviewing comments received, it would appear that the proposals were not well supported at all, and with that in mind, the recommendation from the engineer to the committee is as follows. So first, we recommend to withdraw the proposals to introduce permit bays along Mount View, and this will satisfy objections. Proposals to introduce no waiting at any time along the west side of Mount View are to remain unchanged. We also plan to introduce a 2-hour free period for non-permit holders to satisfy concerns that non-permit holders will have nowhere to park in Ashton. Now, I'd like to point out that these bays were always allocated as permit holder only bays and have been signed accordingly. Right, so moving on to my next slide. So let's look at the proposals which went out to consultation. I'm just going to talk through the key points. So first was proposed no waiting at any time restrictions. So as you can see on the plan, if you look to the north of the plan along Mount View, on the left hand side of Mount View or the west side is a red line. Now this symbolises proposed no waiting at any time restrictions. On the other side of the road you can see the blue parking bays hatched in blue, and you can also see these in Ashton Gardens. Now these represent proposals to introduce permit holder only parking bays. So in summary, the red line on the left is proposed no waiting at any time restrictions. You've got some restrictions of no waiting at any time around the car park at the north end of Mount View, and also in advance of the parking bays on Ashton Gardens. Now moving on to the next proposals, these are my proposals which have been amended sub consultation response. Right, so now you can see we've left the proposals to introduce no waiting at any time in, the red line still in, but on the opposite side of the road on Mount View, you can now see a blue dash line. Now this blue dash line symbolises that we would like to withdraw proposals to introduce permit holder only parking bays. Now, if you look to the south of the plan, in the yellow hatch bays, we've now hatched these yellow. In the drawing previously, these were blue. This is because we've listened to objections, and what we're proposing, as I mentioned earlier, is the introduction of a 2-hour free period for non-permit holders. So this will satisfy the objection received. So this concludes my slide presentation. This is just a location plan, and this just shows where Mill Street, Mount View and Ashton Gardens are in relation to other key attractions in that particular area. So this concludes my slideshow, and I'll now be happy to answer any queries or questions you may have relating to this. And now would you like me to stop sharing my screen, or would you like me to keep it up?
Does anyone have any questions for Ben? Particularly thinking Eastleigh North. Have either Councillor, yeah. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bicknell, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very quick one, Ben. It's quite handy. You've got the slide up. Perhaps if you could bring up the slide that shows the allocation of the bays and the no wait. That's the one, please. Yeah. Quite handy. Doesn't really matter. It's a question.
Can you see it?
Yeah. I've got a bigger screen to my right here, so I don't have to use. I don't have to.
You'll have to excuse me, by the way. My internet's really bad, so I think I've turned my camera off.
Yeah, no, I've got a bigger screen, so I don't have to use the eye test and the Surface Pro or whatever else, even my laptop. It's always a question I ask on these things.
Yeah.
You've got on the left-hand side, or as you said, west, but left is easier. No waiting at any time, and then there's parking on the right-hand side. I'm always looking to maximise parking.
Yeah.
So the question is why can they not park outside their houses where on the surface, looking at the plan, there looks to be more parking, therefore more cars can park, and the no waiting at any time goes on the right hand side where there looks to be less parking.
So what the idea behind that is because obviously with parked cars on the footway, we noticed that some of them could park up on the footway, and this will reduce footway width and also make it harder for vulnerable road users such as double buggies, anyone with a wheelchair, that sort of thing. So basically the reason why we've introduced the no waiting restrictions is because the road hasn't got sufficient width to accommodate vehicles parking on both sides. So to formalise the parking and make it easier for everyone, we've looked to introduce parking on the other side and keep that side near the houses clear. That's my response.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. I always ask that sort of question to maximise parking.
I mean, it's one of those, councillor. You could leave it down to residents to sort of do it amongst themselves, but in this situation, I think it's better to formalise it, and then it just keeps everything a lot safer and tidier. Yeah.
Indeed, and at the end of the day, as it's down to Councillor Tyson Payne and Councillor Clark, it's their ward. But we tend to ask that question because maximising parking. So happy with the explanation, Ben. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. No problem.
Okay, Councillor Tyson Payne, did you have a question?
So I just want some clarification, please. So forget about what's been proposed, what's been proposed to not be proposed. Yes, what's different now in this to what was there before? Because I'm a little confused.
So do you mean what's the difference between the initial proposals, which we advertise, and then the difference between those in the amended proposals?
No,
you mean what was there before all of this?
Yes, because I know this area quite well. I'm there relatively frequently, and what I can't get in my head is I know what it was like. I don't want to know what you hoped it would be like. I want to know what you're planning it will be like.
So you want, well, basically what we're looking, I mean, you can see the existing restrictions are shown on the plan. We've got some existing double yellow lines at the junction. There were some lines further up which we've withdrawn, but we've not shown on this plan. So what we're looking to do really is formalise the parking, keep it free of obstruction. I mean, the reason why we looked at introducing permit holder bays is because there was a planning condition associated with the new development, and some money was set aside for us to review the issues around there. And basically, this is in a CPZ at the moment. So the thinking behind it was, if people from the development were parking on these roads, then the introduction of permit holder only bays would clear that up, because the people from the development wouldn't be eligible to park there. So that was the thinking behind that. And then you've got the no waiting at any time on the other side of the road, because that road's not wide enough to accommodate vehicles on both sides. So that's obviously, we're clearing it of obstruction. In the bays to the south.
So sorry, I haven't explained myself well enough.
Sorry.
Forget about what you were proposing to do. Now, what will be different to what was there before?
What will be different is that we will formalise the parking bays to the south, because there's no order behind them at the moment, and they were marked as permit parking bays. Okay, so what we're looking at, so they were already allocated as permit parking bays, so we're firming up the legal order behind them, and we're also making them a little bit more relaxed by allocating a 2-hour free period for non-permit holders. So people who haven't got a permit can park there for 2 hours during the day, and then after 8 o'clock on an evening, anyone can park there. So really the restrictions on the parking bays are really from 8 AM to 8 PM. After that, anyone can park there. On the Mount View, we're withdrawing proposals to introduce permit parking bays. So we're literally just running a double yellow line up one side of the road to formalise the parking and keep it free of obstruction. All the other restrictions remain the same.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I wasn't clear enough.
No, my question was poorly put.
All right, thank you.
Thank you both.
No problem.
And can we go over to Councillor Clark, please?
Okay, I'll be concise, as I was asked to speak because I'm an Eastleigh North councillor. Thanks, Ben, for all your work on this. I'm very happy with the outcome, and thanks for responding to the residents' concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, you know, with these parking schemes, you know, we really need to take on board the representations, and you know, it seems like we're make it easier for residents. We certainly don't want to make it any more difficult. But actually, just to mention that we did receive late in the day today another representation, but they were imminent in whether they supported it or not. But I thought I'd bring that up as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So do I have a proposer, please? And you might have to use the chat box because I can't see any of you at this moment. If one of you could. Someone indicate. Oh, Councillor Irish waved at me there. And do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tyson Payne, thank you. Do we have any debate? Silence is golden. Okay, so we'll move straight over to the vote, and I believe we're going to use the online voting process again.
We are, sorry, councillors, the box opens straight over my microphone, so I can't speak if I've got the box open, which I did just have, so bear with me a second and I'll set the vote up again.
Okay, thank you. We're waiting for just one more.
Yeah. Seems Councillor Clark, it doesn't appear to have registered your vote if you voted.
I did.
There we go.
You go. When I clicked submit vote just now, 2 came up just as I did it, so I assume that was me, but obviously it didn't click properly.
Okay,
I gave
lovely.
a little thumbs up on an emoji as well, just to.
That's 100% in favour, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. So thank you very much, Ben, for being so patient and waiting for so long. Hopefully that made it worthwhile.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, so that takes us on to the last item, which is planning appeals, item number 10. Members, do you have any questions on those? Nope, silence again. And members, does anybody have any objection to noting these?
I have a question. Sorry, I wasn't quick enough.
Okay, Councillor Payne. Tyson Payne, sorry.
No, you're probably right with the first word. Planning appeals. Can I just be clear, because I always find that the language odd on point A. So we have said they can't have a freestanding digital advertising board, and they're appealing against our decision not to have one. Is that correct?
I just have to find.
Everybody else is nodding. So
nodding, yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. That's clear.
Okay. So if everyone else is happy, there are no objections, then thank you very much, members. That's duly noted. And councillors, officers and members of the public who've done very well to stay with us to the end. That concludes our meeting. The next meeting will take place on Tuesday, the 13th of October on Microsoft Teams Live. I'd like to thank everyone who has been so kind and generous in supporting me, particularly this evening on my first live event. And I'd like to wish you a very good evening and thank you for watching. Thank you. Yeah.